Hey everyone, this is PrinceBrightstar, and happy 30th anniversary to the Phantasy Star series. This is a very exciting time here. I decided what we would do here tonight in celebration is take a look at the Phantasy Star Complete Collection. I had to leave it on that other screen because this screen goes away really quick here, so let's go ahead and hop back in there. What this is it is a collection of all of the Algol series Phantasy Star games. And what that means is it's going to have your core Phantasy Star 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as your Phantasy Star 2 text adventure games. And so what we're going to do here over the next little while here is we're going to take a quick look at all the different features that are inside this collection here, and then we'll kind of take it from there. Let's go ahead and start with the first one, which is Phantasy Star, the original here. And just for reference, this came out, let me turn this down a little bit here. This came out originally on the PlayStation 2 as part of a collection called the Sega Ages 2500 collection, and it was a series of games that were developed for release at a price of 2,500 yen. And this was one of the games, in fact, I believe it was either the final one or the second to final one that was released for that collection. Also part of that were also two remakes of the first two Phantasy Star games. Now, what you're hearing here is, once again, the FM synthesis chip for the original Phantasy Star game. If you heard the music in the game that I was playing earlier this year or last year, I can't remember at this point here when it was, but we went through the original Phantasy Star at one point here, and as part of that, as part of the retrospective, I pointed out this fact that there was different music. Let's just go ahead and get this started here. This is going to be in the Japanese language here, of course. So I'm just going to skip through all these scenes here. But basically, this collection, like I said, it has the main games of the series for the Algol series. Let's just go ahead and head out of town, because I also want to show you how the audio sound effects work here in this. Let's just go ahead and get into a fight here real quick. Hopefully the encounter rate is high enough here. Here we go. Alright, so there's the different music once again here. And those are the kind of sound effects that you could get from the FM synthesis chip. So, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit select, and this is going to bring up the system menu here. And what this does is it allows you to change many different functions within the game that you're playing here. So in this particular case, we've got this machine selection. I'll get to that in a moment here. Let's go down to options here. And as we can see here, we can change what's set on the controller here. There's even an acceleration button here, which can be mapped to a series of buttons here. Now, this originally came out on the PlayStation 2. I'm playing a PlayStation Network release on the PlayStation 3. I will note, though, that you have to create a Japanese PlayStation Network account in order to get that. Let's check out the other options that we got here. We got extended options. You can turn on or off the sprite limit. You can increase the CPU clock if you wanted to. You can even enable and disable the FM sound chip. You can also increase how quickly you move. And then the difficulty setting here. You're going to find this along with the movement speed across almost all the games in the collection here, aside from the text adventure ones. The difficulty one here basically allows you to change the rate at which you accumulate Meseta as well as experience here. So normal is going to be your typical 1x, easy is going to be your 2x, and very easy is going to be 4x. It does not actually change the AI as far as I can tell here. It just changes how quickly you gain experience, as well as Meseta. No, I didn't want to quit out there just yet. Okay, and then back when the game was originally released, it was using a lot more kanji in it. And so this is also a setting that was added to make it a little more easy to read what was in the game. Now let's exit out of here. We've also got these archives here, and we have a sound test that we can go into. We also have this gallery that we can go into, and this is going to go through some of the promotional art that was available for the original release of Phantasy Star. So we'll just kind of go through a few of these here. Here's some original black and white art. So yeah, and there are galleries for each of these games that we'll take a brief look at here. Let's take a look at the sound test here. This is going to load us into this here. And whatever track you want to listen to, you can pretty much just listen to it very easily here. And then, of course, we've also got these sound effects as well here. Okay, let's head back into the game now here and go back into the options. We've also got display settings, and that will allow you to change texture mapping if you want to. You can enable or disable deflicker. There's also an intensity setting which will darken the image. And then there are also display mode settings here. You can select from any number that's available here. I'm just leaving it on the default here since I'm already coming out of an HDMI cable from my PlayStation 3, so it's not really going to matter much for me here. Okay, and then let's also finally take a look at this machine option up here. And right now it's set to a Sega Mark III. Now what we can do is we can move over to the right, and now let's move it to where it says Master System. Now let's get out of the menu. Now you can hear the music has changed here. And so now let's go ahead and hit start. Space Century 342 Kemenite on Palma. Yes indeed. This collection not just only has the Japanese release, it also has all of the English releases that were made available as well as part of the collection. So if you want to play in English, you will be able to do that, at least for some of the games part of this collection here. So with that, let's go ahead and exit out now. Actually, return to title. Okay. And so now let's move on to Phantasy Star 2. Once again, we're just doing a brief look at these. I'm going to eventually get to each of these as part of what we're doing here on the channel. So, once again, text is in Japanese, but I want to make a point here with this one here, and it's very similar to Phantasy Star as well here. The game itself was released with different music options as well. So, as part of that, what we've got is this drum beat in the background that you can hear here. And this drum beat goes, it's consistent throughout almost the entire game. Now, let's go ahead and do the same thing we did before, and let's switch over to the Genesis as the machine. And now, the snare drum, as it were, has now essentially been muted. And so international gamers got a very different soundtrack than what you heard in the Japanese release. So let's go ahead and just start up a new game here. I'll just call him Rolf, which is what his English name was. I am haunted by nightmares every night. A young girl is battling a giant demon. I am close by but cannot move or speak. All I can do is watch while the demon keeps striking at the girl. Now, those of you that have seen or played the original Phantasy Star know that this is Alice fighting against Dark Force. Just as she is fighting for her life, I awake. I awake in my room, dimly lit by the early dawn. I am filled with an incredible sadness and fear. I am Rolf, an agent here in Paseo, the capital of Mota, or Motavia. For some reason, the planets were truncated to just 4 letters. I shake my head as if to scatter the remnants of the dream. I have no time to worry like a child about nightmares in this modern age, especially with the mother brain planning and controlling all aspects of the environment. I open my window and take a deep breath of fresh air. It seems to wash away the bad feelings left by my dream. Okay, and now this scene here is just moving me along. From here, I'm just going to skip through the text here. Once again, once I get to this as part of a series, I'll be reading through all the text. But I do want to move things along here. Alright, and there is Nay. Rolf met Nay about a year ago, and she was born around that time as well. So it's interesting how she came about here. But anyway, we need to get her some gear. Steel bar. Actually, not to Rolf. Give it to Nay. Alright, let's just step outside. She is... Let's see, actually, I think I can get more detail. Okay, maybe not in this version here. But she is a year old, and there's a story reason behind that. Even though she looks to be a full-grown woman. Let's go ahead and equip those steel bars. Okay, and now let's just kind of walk around for a moment here. And let's try to get into an encounter. Alright, let's set her to fight. Okay, and there we go. So that is one fight complete here. Now, one thing that I will note is that redness that flashes is a lot brighter than it is in the Japanese release. It's actually very muted in the Japanese release compared to what international audiences got. Let's go ahead and head back into town now here. And I want to head over to here. This place is called the data memory here. And this is basically where if you need to recover your memories, you can come into here. It's essentially the way of saving the game. And you can also learn how much you need in order to level up as well here. So let's go ahead and put our experiences into the data memory. And we'll call this Rolf. And since I'm playing PlayStation 2 release here, it's going to ask me about a PlayStation 2 memory card at this point here. There we go. Alright, let's go ahead and continue on here, and at this point, let's go ahead and open up the options again here. So, options, once again, we can set the controller however we want. Movement speed, let's go ahead and set this to boost 2. Difficulty to very easy, because I do want to demonstrate how the increased experience and Meseta works. It also has this fast window and fast battle options. Now, fast window, what that does is it basically makes it so that you're not waiting for the initial fade-in to happen on the game when a battle occurs, and then fast battle increases how quickly enemies' animations will play through. Let's see here. Oh, actually, I do want those. Okay, and it prompts you saying that you need to reboot the game in order for it to take effect. So let's go ahead and now head back into the data memory. And there we go. And vroom! Here we go! We are moving very fast now here. And this is only the medium setting. You could go even faster, but honestly, you lose control pretty easily if you go for that one. So I find setting it to 2 is going to be the best option in this particular game. And there we go. So we are instantly into the fight. Okay, and it looks like by enabling that, those options there, it also enabled the dimmer redness in combat here, and that's actually a very important thing, especially for people with epilepsy as well here. So that's actually very nice to find that in the English release here, and so just out of concerns of safety for anybody that views the series, I may actually consider playing it on playing Phantasy Star 2 on this particular version, just so that I can be safe with my audience. All right, let's go ahead and check out the archives at this point here. And once again, we've got some artwork from the original release of the game, and then this, once again, is, I don't know, some people describe this as bad game artwork, but I was kind of interested by it when I first saw it in the US release of the game. And that's just a cityscape. This is Rolf, also known as Usis in the Japanese version. Here's Nay, Rolf or Rudger, and there's artwork for all the main characters in the game here. So plenty of artwork to go around. Let's go into the sound test. And once again, whatever you're interested in listening to, you can just listen to it. And of course, we've got our sound test as well here. Or our sound effects, rather. Okay, so let's go ahead and return to title once again. And now let's check out Phantasy Star 3. Okay, and so for this particular game, there was no difference in terms of the audio between versions here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to the Genesis version. And we don't have as many options here, but we do still have at least one important one here, which is the boost options for movement speed. Let's go ahead and set that to boost 2. And yep, let's start the game up here. Now this takes a little while to get going here. So, the legends of the past shape our lives and those of our children. One such legend is of a struggle that almost destroyed our world. The names of Orekio and Laia echoed down through the years, still inspiring love and hatred, even now 1,000 years after their tragic deaths. Their conflict wiped out civilization and left the survivors in a world of mutated creatures and warring pockets of men. Into this shattered world you are thrust, to live or die by your sword and your wits. Okay, and so even at 2x speed, this is still kind of slow, but still also a lot faster than how it was in the original game here. And so here's Reese, and what we want to do here, let's just take a quick look. He's got a couple of items on him. Let's go ahead and take those off. And I want to head into the item shop. I believe that was over here. Okay, that's actually the inn. Once again, there are plenty of opportunities for us in the future to get through this game here, but I do want to point off one thing in particular. I'm probably not going to be I'm not going to be able to show off during the actual series here. All right. Here we go. We're going to buy an escape pipe, or an Esca pipe. I doubt there's any relationship to the Esca we know from Phantasy Star Online 2. Okay, so let's now make our way up into the castle area over here. And what's going to play out here is a cutscene. I am honored that you want to marry me, Reese. Perhaps someday we will find out where I'm from, and who I am. I, Reese, do take thee, Maya, to be my filthy Orekians. Maya will not... Yeah, unfortunately the text moves pretty quickly. No, return her, you foul dragon spawn of Laia. I'll find Maya if I have to search forever. I'll take the army to destroy Laia's clan. Don't be a fool. No one has seen a lion for over 1,000 years. Starting a war is not a rational thing to do. Cool off in the dungeon. For a while. You can't stop me from going after her, father. I'll find her again, and I'll bring her back. I swear it. Okay, so obviously we are in this prison here, and we cannot get out. But we just purchased an item, and that is that Esca pipe here. So let's go ahead and use that, and voila, we are outside. So, what do you think about that, Father? You used your Esca pipe. Normally a smart move. But now I'm afraid the game can't be continued. Please press the reset button and try again. So, yeah, unfortunately, the game designers did have to think about that one, and they had to block you from doing it here. Because basically there's no way to get out of the dungeon without the help of another person that you would find. Let's head back into there real quick so I can kind of show you that here. Actually, I wonder if they fixed that. Alright, well, regardless, basically, at this point, at this point, let's go ahead and check out the archives here. And let's take a look at the gallery. So just some of the original box art. I think this is where we actually get into the promotional art. And of course, once again, we have a sound test available to us. So you got your music and all the sound effects once again. Alright, so let's return to title. And let's check out Phantasy Star 4 or Phantasy Star: The End of the Millennium. So, funny thing here, this is saying start here, but here we've got Japanese text here. So I found that kind of funny that they put that there. Alright, let's switch this over to the Genesis. Okay, and the movement speed was actually typically pretty good when it came to this particular game, so we'll just set... actually, we can leave that as well for now. Okay, let's take a look at the game itself here. Chaz, we have work to do. Hurry up and get ready. This is your first job since you joined the Hunters Guild. You better put your heart into it. So, I'm not a trainee anymore? From this day on, you are a full-fledged partner. Now come on, let's go. Where are we off to this time? It's a bit far. We're going to the Motavia Academy in the town of Pieta. Wow, so we're going to the town of learning. I wonder what's happened there. Who knows? The message said just come. We'll get the details once we're there. Now, Phantasy Star: The End of the Millennium was the final game that was released on the Sega Genesis as part of the Phantasy Star series. I'm just going to skip through this here at this point. But this is not skippable, I believe. Yeah. After Weiss 2284, monster attacks have swelled the ranks of those who call themselves hunters, But as the attacks become ever... Yeah, this is slow, unfortunately. Ever more frequent and powerful, an elite few begun to wonder what is behind this outbreak, and when and how it will all end. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a quick look in here. We do have a way to set message speed as well as battle speed, so there's no need for that in the options. And once again, let's just skip through all this. And what they're talking about here is the fact that there is this monster outbreak in the basement of this building here, and so Alice and Chaz have been hired to essentially eliminate the issue. And the fact that Alice doesn't trust him. Alright, and now this is Han here, and basically he wants to join the party so he can look into what's going on in the basement as well as help his professor that's over in Birth Valley. Basically, the principal of this building has forbid anybody from going back to Birth Valley, even though something has happened to the professor. Okay, and so here we are in combat, and so we've got the command menu that is available to us here, but we've also got this MACR, and what this is it's the macro function of the game. Basically, you can set up attacks however you want, and they will play out in order. So right now we've just got the basic attacks in there. But if we go into the menu, we can actually set up our own macros. So let's say we want Alice to use Vortex, we want Chaz to Res, which is short for Resta, and then we want Han to use Vision. So now let's get ourselves into a fight. And we got a surprise attack there. And there we go. And so that's how the macro works. If you've just got a bunch of commands that you're going to use over and over, you can use that. You can use the macro function to set that up. The other thing is, as I mentioned before, things play out in the order listed here. So there are certain hidden abilities that can basically be used if multiple characters use specific abilities at the same time. And the way that works in terms of macros is you want to set whoever is the slowest character to go first, and then the next slowest and the next slowest, and eventually once the slowest character goes, that's when the combination attack goes off. So let's just go ahead and finish these guys off. Okay, and so now let's go ahead and check out the options. Once again, we've got our typical movement speed as well as difficulty. Let's go and check out the gallery. And of course you can zoom this in and look around using the left and right thumbsticks. So once again, just the cast of characters here. And then, of course, we have some funny manga art here about what not to do with the cartridge, which is kind of a moot point here since this is a downloaded game through the PlayStation Network. Oh, those phones! I've never seen a phone that had a crazy angle on the on the um, on the antenna like that. But here are some of the weapons in the game, some of the armor, and this is a map of the first planet, Motavia. And so that's a look at the gallery. Let's check out the sound test. The funny thing is that technically we don't need a sound test because once you beat the game, there is also a sound test that was built into the game as well. Alright, so let's return to title, and I believe that is the end of all of the English games that are available here, because now we get into the Phantasy Star 2 text adventures. And so this is Yushi's adventure, and Yushi's was, or is, the main character of Phantasy Star 2. And let's just kind of start this up real quick here. This is going over some of the basic rules of the game. And as we can see, he's pretty young here. And what this is it's like I said before, it's a text adventure. Very similar in style, if you happen to catch it when I went through it, in the style of Phantasy Star Adventure. And this, basically you got your menu options, movement, item, and a few other things in here. I think this just looks around, or maybe they have something to do with items or talking. I'm not 100% certain. There is a translated version available through a fan translation, and so when I go through these games, I'll be using those in order to aid myself here. But this is just one of the Phantasy Star 2 text adventures. There is actually a text adventure for all of the characters. So now let's go into the options. We can set our controller options, as well as configure the sprite limit if we want to use that. Archives, we do actually have a gallery for this as well. And what this is showing here is if you look kind of in the middle of the lower right there, there is this modem item, and basically the text adventures were originally games that were downloaded via telephone line into your Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. And this is talking a little bit more about coverage for the game, I believe. Okay, and once again, we also have a sound test here. So let's get out of that. Once again, we also have video settings here, and then you can also, with these particular games, you can also suspend and return to title, and that will then let you resume the game from where you left off. Takes a moment for it to save the suspend file, though. There we go. Okay, so now we're out of this here. And so that's basically what we've got here as part of the collection. Now, there is supposed to be a way to also unlock some additional games here. So let me see if I can trigger that real quick here. There we go. So, basically what I was doing is I went out to the title screen and then I came back in holding L1, L2, R1, R2, as well as select, and then I hit start. And that then brought this up. And I mentioned Phantasy Star Adventure a moment ago here, and here it is. Now, Phantasy Star Adventure was released on the Sega Game Gear. And I've already played this game as part of a 2-episode series on this channel. So we're not going to go too far into this here. But let's once again take a look at options. We can set whatever we want for the controller, as well as the sprite limit and the CPU clock. We can overclock that. Archives, let's take a look at that. So those are kind of the 3 main good guys. Here's the bad guy of the game. And there's some of the packaging. And I believe this is the manual. And so that's a look at the gallery, and once again, there is a sound test. I think you guys get the idea at this point here. You can also suspend and return to title with this one. We'll just go ahead and quit out of this one. And the last game that we have as part of the collection here is this one here. And this is Phantasy Star Gaiden, or Phantasy Star Side Story. Now, this game in particular is the one game that technically does not take place... Well, technically, Phantasy Star 3 as well, but you'll learn more about that later on. But this is the main game that actually is not really connected to Algol at all, except for one point, which is really a spoiler, so I'm not really going to cover that here. But we're just kind of really quickly skipping through the introductory text here. And this game also does have an English translation available, which I will eventually cover on the channel. As you can see, we're basically in just a quiet little town here. You can initiate talking to somebody just by running into them. And during the early part of the game, until you actually complete certain objectives here, you actually can't leave town. So I'm not gonna cover that here. But let's go ahead and also take a look at the options here. So once again, we can set the buttons we want to use. We can set the sprite limit, as well as the overclocking of the CPU. And let's take a look at the gallery for this one. And isn't that interesting? We've got artwork of Alice, Meow, Odin, and Rutsu there. Okay, and this is basically what the world map looks like here. And once again, we've also got a sound test available. Video settings. And that's pretty much it. So those were the games of the Phantasy Star Algol series. Once again, it is just amazing that this game series has made it 30 years at this point. December 20th, 1987 was when the original Phantasy Star released, and I am so glad that it continues to run to this day. With Phantasy Star Online 2, of course, being the main game that's being focused on by Sega, along with Phantasy Star Online 2S, along with the upcoming Switch release, Phantasy Star Online 2 Cloud, which is basically Phantasy Star Online 2, but it's being streamed through the Switch from online servers. So it's so nice that this series is still going, and yet, if you want to, there are just all these different lore points that you could just dig into and learn more about the series, because we're talking over 25 games in the series at this point. So everywhere you look, there is something for everybody. Even card games. There is a card game that exists as part of this series, Phantasy Star Online Episode 3 Card Revolution, which I absolutely loved back in the day, and I've still got it. And that's yet another game that we're going to cover on this channel eventually. But, once again, this was just a brief look at Phantasy Star Complete Collection. As I mentioned before, there's probably a good chance when I get to Phantasy Star 2, I'm actually going to cover that using this collection out of the sake of safety for my viewers. And once again, happy 30th anniversary, Phantasy Star. This is PrinceBrightstar signing off. I'll catch you next time.